to language here. Because as language is translated over from its original language, sometimes it takes on shades of meaning that are slightly different than we would imagine. So hate does not mean to connote despise or loathe, but it does connote the sense of detaching from or turning away from. And so in that sense, what Jesus says here is still a difficult pill to swallow, is it not? So why does Jesus say something that's so hard to hear? Why does he speak these difficult words? Scholars in the Gospel of Matthew tell us that we always have to take notice of where a story occurs. And they tell us that particularly in the Gospel of Matthew, this is true in any of the Gospels, but particularly in the Gospel of Matthew, there's a turning point in the Gospel. It happens at chapter 9, verse 53. And it says in that verse, and Jesus set his face resolutely, determinedly, to go to Jerusalem. And to go to Jerusalem, of course, means to go face the cross. And so scholars say if that's the turning point, then anything that happens after that in the Gospel, we have to pay attention to because it has the cross in view. And so, as we read the beginning of this scripture passage, we find that crowds are following Jesus. They are following Jesus almost in the sense of how we today would think about following the winning team or the winning coach and wanting to cheer them on and say, this is where it's happening, this is the good thing that's going on right now. And they had that sense in which they had great anticipation of all that Jesus was going to do and accomplish for them in the world. And much of that was completely the wrong picture in terms of what Jesus was literally called to do. Crowds are following Jesus. They're ready to cheer him on, but everything that they have in mind is a far cry from what God has called Jesus to do. To ultimately face the cross, to give up much of what he would desire to do with his life in order to be a sacrifice for you and me. And so for these folks who are ready to blithely follow along, who think of this life of Christian discipleship in such an easy, non-demanding kind of way, Jesus says, hey, wait a minute. Before you sign on the dotted line to come and be my disciple, you first have to count the cost. You have got to keep your eyes straight on me and realize exactly where I'm headed. As I worked with the scripture passage this week, I thought about Greek and Roman mythology for some reason. And I remembered that in Greek and Roman mythology, there was a race of giants. You remember that race of giants? They are referred to as the Cyclops. And the thing that was distinctive about them is that they had not two eyes, but they had one eye, right in the center of the forehead. And so when you think about that, it brings a whole different dimension to the thing of seeing, doesn't it? You and I have two eyes. We have peripheral vision. We can see something over here or something over here while also seeing what's in front of us. But Jesus demands that we have that singular eye, that sense in which our eye is always trained on him. And when our eye is always trained on him, then guess what? It makes a difference in everything else in our lives. It makes a difference in the kinds of decisions we make, in the ways that we go about making those decisions. And folks, though we're caught a little bit in a dilemma as we hear that saying of Jesus, you've got to hate mother and father and wife and child and all that. What we realize is that when we keep that singular focus on Jesus and we live out love of God through Jesus Christ, then love abounds in our lives. And there is more love to go around. There is more attention to mother and father and sister and brother and sons and daughters. And so the calling is with us today. The calling is with us the same as it was for those gathered in the crowd that day and listened to Jesus. The calling of Jesus is to come, follow me. Come, be my disciple. But folks, first you must count the cost. After all, the cross is never too far away.